A compost pile is a great way to study some major science concepts. There are physical and chemical changes, habitats for many kinds of organisms, and a complicated food chain. Because a compost pile is alive with many kinds of creatures, you'll often find some surprises. The finished compost is made from dead organic materials, and yet can help new life to thrive. The first thing to notice as we open a working compost pile is the heat that shows up in the form of hot water vapor and carbon dioxide. It's literally bug breath from the bacteria in the pile that are rapidly digesting their food. When heat is produced, it's a sign that a chemical change is happening. In industrial compost, these clouds of vapor are amazing. Compost piles like this create good compost much faster than home piles. Composting is important because it's a vital part of the cycle of life. Composting can also reduce the human impact on the earth caused by waste materials, while contributing rich, fertile additions to gardens and farms. Because what we deal with is the live part of the cycle, the top half. Humans don't always understand the importance of the death, decomposition, and renewal half of the cycle. The good news is that many of our systems are now being designed to be full cycle, or what is called cradle-to-cradle cycles. In composting, we use nature's principles and speed up the process. We make compost piles out of many different materials. The most common are leaves, grass clippings, and food waste. We've dug down through some of the upper layers of this pile to show what compost in process looks like, and to show how mixing can break up the original layers, improving the processes in the pile. Mixing opens up compacted areas, brings new food for the decomposers from the outer dry areas into the core of the pile, and opens up more airspace. We build compost piles in layers, adding different types of materials that we physically change by cutting or chopping into small pieces. Smaller pieces have more surface area for the microorganisms to work on. Cutting and chopping makes the decomposing go faster, just like a piece of apple decomposes more quickly than a whole apple. This pile has been layered and then allowed to compost. Digging down, we see an orange peel that is not yet rotted. The green spots are Japanese beetles that we trapped before they could eat our vegetables. Their shells provide a readily available form of calcium, also found in cartilage and fish scales. At the edge of the pile, where the plant fibers are partially moist, we find a perfect habitat for rove beetles. These beetles are busy eating plant fibers that are pre-softened by the microorganisms. You could think of them as the buffaloes of the pile, getting their food energy directly without further composting. Earthworms are attracted to the pile from the native soil below. They eat bacteria and the softened film on the surfaces of the ingredients. Worms stir and aerate the pile, and they leave their castings, their poop, which are valuable organic fertilizer for plant life. Moistening the ingredients is important because the outer material is usually dry, and when we turn the pile, those dry materials come into the core of the pile and make it too dry. Adding water is vital to the microorganisms and worms. Now we'll add more ingredients, starting with fresh grass clippings. These are moist and serve as a nitrogen source for the food web. Nitrogen provides the basis of protein, which the decomposers use to reproduce. More nitrogen means more decomposers, which means faster and more efficient decomposition. Grass, food scraps, and even manures are sources of nitrogen and are moist and smelly. These kinds of ingredients are known as the greens. In summer, we don't have many dead leaves. Dead leaves are a source of carbon. What we want is a dry fibrous material to layer in with the grass. Shredded newspaper is a great substitute. It comes from trees and falls into the category of browns. Browns are organic materials that have a high carbon content. They are typically dry, might even burn, and can be stored. The browns contain carbohydrates, or energy food, that organisms need. Minerals are normally concentrated in a compost pile, but the pile may not have all the less common minerals needed for the best compost. One of the ways to ensure that the pile has all the trace minerals it needs is to add things like azomite mineral supplement. Just a pint added to this big pile is enough to ensure that all the minor minerals are present. Here we're adding some ground up leaves along with the paper. These leaves are a brown, but much closer to finished compost than paper or leaves themselves. When we started, we took off the top layer of the compost pile. Now we'll put a layer of this material back in because it's already mixed and partially composted, but it is not yet finished compost. It needs more time with the microorganisms. A layer of wood shavings provides a high carbon material that composts quickly. Remember that the high carbon materials are browns. Blue jeans are made of cotton, which composts nicely. The cotton in the jeans is also a brown, even though this brown is blue. Basically, any plant-based materials can be composted. More grass clippings are added to provide the greens we need for a more active compost pile. Grass clippings are mostly water and will shrink quickly. Another full sprinkling of water is ideal now. It's not a good idea to just pour water on the top and hope everything gets damp. Watering each layer guarantees that all the ingredients become damp. Most of the critters in the pile survive only in the water film that coats the ingredients. Most home compost piles are too dry. That means the microorganisms are not decomposing organic materials and releasing thermal energy, so the pile doesn't get hot from the chemical changes of decomposition. Now for something you might not expect. We've used a chemical change to burn dry sticks to make charcoal. Charcoal made from burning organic material is called biochar. After some grinding, this charcoal gets added to help hold moisture, minerals, and microbes in the finished compost. Did you know that native people of the Amazon River Basin did this to make their soil rich over 1,000 years ago? Some compost companies are now adding biochar to their premium composts. Corrugated cardboard is widely recycled, but after it's soaked with water, it decomposes rapidly. This is an example of a physical change that supports the chemical change when the cardboard is decomposed. Wet cardboard is a soft, easy to compost brown. We've been looking at backyard composting, which is a great way to use your food scraps and yard trimmings to make amazing, rich compost. Now let's take a quick look at how Missouri Organic Recycling makes compost on an industrial scale. They collect out-of-date and spoiled food from all over the Kansas City area. They use a depackaging machine to remove the cardboard and plastic and end up with a thick, liquid stream of food waste. The mixture combines 1,000 gallons of liquid food with about 15 tons of ground up leaves. After mixing for about 10 minutes, the material goes into piles for composting and turning. The compost is usually finished within 2 to 3 months. To summarize, Missouri Organic takes waste that would have gone to the landfill, which would have produced methane gas that can disrupt the climate. They take this broken part of the decomposition cycle and support the natural decomposition of organic waste material, making compost that is used throughout their community. I hope you can see that the compost pile acts like a decomposing machine. It's a human-made thing. You put in organic materials, greens and browns, water, and maybe some special nutrients like minerals and biochar. You get out soil that is rich in minerals, carbon, nitrogen, holds water, and is ready to put on your farm, garden, lawn, or in a flower pot to grow vibrant plants. These are eaten by others, such as birds and reptiles, in the predator-prey cycle of the compost food web. The compost creates a rich soil which provides nutrients for plants. Compost is like a living bridge that connects two broken ends of the cycle of life, the dead and the living. Waste becomes food, and food generates waste. Every living thing is eventually food for some other kind of creature, cycling energy and sharing the fuel for life itself. Thanks for watching, and good luck in your exploration of this vital part of the cycle of life.